I want you to recall a moment in your career when everything feels reliable, predictable, and perfectly comfortable. You know what questions to ask in an interview. You know the standard timeline for how an engineer grows. And you feel like you have a reliable playbook for your day-to-day work. It feels safe. For me, that was over a year ago. I sat in Meta's new hire orientation. Next to me was a new hire who just joined my team. On the stage stands a senior manager who I know well. I was familiar with many of the things his team built. I looked up to him, hoping my career will go in a path similar to his. The audience was similar. Other managers sitting with their 20 years old new hires. Many of them landed their first tech job and are excited to start. The speaker is talking about AI adoption, trying to teach the audience how to use the tools we have in our company. Some tools I was familiar with, some I had no idea existed. He's talking about giving a role to an agent, context, tokens, really basic stuff. Basic stuff, which it was obvious to me that everyone who sits in the audience is well aware of, well familiar with. Now the Q&A part. One of the new hires asked a question about vibe coding. The speaker was confused, puzzled, mumbled something and avoided the question altogether. He has no idea what vibe coding is, and he was afraid to ask. Hi, I'm Danit. I'm a software engineer manager at Meta, and this story is how I started my journey into the AI era. I am not an early adopter. I work with a notebook and a pen, and I refuse to replace my phone unless I really, really have to. But that moment, when I saw this manager's embarrassment, I couldn't avoid thinking what it would have been for me to be up there. I got scared. That is when I realized I have to do something. This is not just a generational gap. This is an era where all of us leaders required to adapt into a technology that didn't even exist for the majority of our career. Walking out of that orientation room, I started debugging it. Was that painful silence on stage was a one manager's failure, or was it our whole system breaking? And I was worried. My new engineer was going to start tomorrow with AI superpowers, and all the tools I had to manage them belonged to a completely different decade. I couldn't use it. First, our front door was broken. Traditional coding interviews were failing because candidates were using tools like Interview Coder to cheat their way into the company. Then, our calibration and growth broke. I had no idea what the new bar looked like, what counted as expected, and what exceeded the expectation. I had no idea which goals make sense. And I had no idea how to lead. How can I teach my team to use a tool I don't know how to use myself? I don't even know about all the tools that exist or what will be in the future. My 20 years of experience were worthless, even worse. They hold me back. I had a choice. I could panic, try to ban AI, and cling back to my comfort zone, hoping to find a new workplace that will do the same. Or I could rewrite the playbook, rebuild the three core pillars of our engineering culture: how we hire, how we evaluate, and how we lead. I chose to rebuild. The first thing I focused on was the way we hire. The traditional interviews didn't work. We saw tools like Interview Coder, which is basically a non-detectable screen overlay. The interviewers couldn't see it, even with screen sharing, and it allowed an AI assistant to fully analyze the screen and voice content. It created an overlay of the coded solution on top of the candidate's screen. All they needed to do is just type it in. My grandma could have passed the interview. My first instinct was a band-aid. Let's move back to an in-person interviews. But that was just me trying to run to my comfort zone again. We want engineers who can thrive in an AI native environment. And the traditional interviews are not measuring that. So I joined a thinking group. Gathered people with knowledge in different areas who are passionate about hiring. Senior engineers, leaders, juniors, recruiters, analysts. We all sat together and started to question the whole coding interview process. How coding is going to look like in the future? Which skills we will need the engineers to have? And how can we measure those skills in an interview? Now remember, it was early 2025. Many principles that now became obvious back then were a struggle. Senior engineers pushed back. They saw AI as a problem that wastes our time, reduces code quality, keeps the engineers average, and causes outages in production. It took time to evolve and talk about different skills of AI and how we want the use of AI and if we want the use of AI to be mandatory or not. What really surprised me with the end result was that the assessment criteria didn't really change. We still need to measure how engineers do problem exploration, coding, validation, and communication. The only thing that changed is the way we look at it. The way an engineer explores the problem in front of them, the way they use AI tools, and how do they leverage the AI assistant to learn about the code base. Traditionally, the problem scope was small, and the exploration was back and forth with the interviewer. Now, we can introduce them to a full code base and see how they leverage the AI assistants and learn about the problem that is in front of them. Same thing with coding. How fast can they produce code? With the assistance of AI, the bar of how much code is expected moved higher. But we still expect high-quality code produced, a code that solves a problem and is easy to maintain, easy to validate. In validation, we don't want engineers who assume the code is working. We want them to question the code, to question the AI assistant output. We want to measure how they validate. Which tests do they run? Which follow-up questions are they prompting back? Communication pretty much stay the same. Communication skills with your interviewer are still crucial. We want to make sure that the candidate is communicative about their concerns, follow-ups, and next steps. So it worked. We fixed the front door. We started hiring these incredible, highly adaptable AI native engineers. But the second they walked through the door and sat at their desk, the second pillar completely collapsed. I was no longer calibrated. Things I expected would take months to achieve now can be done in days. Code machine archetypes became irrelevant. Knowledge about the code base is now something anyone can achieve with a few prompts. I started to think about my early career as a manager. How did I learn to calibrate myself? What made me put my expectation bar where it is? It was my experience. It was many engineers in different levels and different sets of skills, and me exploring what is the impact they managed to achieve. Me comparing them with other engineers. And as I saw more and more engineers, I developed my own sense of expectation, my own bar. Now, everyone keeps telling me that with AI, I need to expect more from my engineers. So I thought to myself, great, I will just raise the bar. Now, IC3s can do a bit more. Junior engineers can be mid-level engineers, and mid-level can be seniors. I felt I know what I'm doing. But that was just my comfort zone trying to push in again. The real bar kept moving up. The only way I could catch up with those is to keep calibrate, sometimes on a weekly basis. I had countless sessions with peer managers where I learned what their engineers do. I was just keep adding red dots to this graph. And please, don't fall for posts about success, okay? Talk with your people. Check if it's just a hype or is it really used. Only real work with real impact, which I was able to follow its progress every week, that was the only thing that was relevant. I learned what works and what's not. I tried things myself and I stayed up to date, making sure that my engineers will be up to date as well. The goals became current goals, and I credit the ambitious engineers who continue keep hitting the goals month after month. Which brings me to the final pillar and the hardest one, the way we lead. Remember that senior managers from the orientation? He froze because for his entire career, his value was tied to his knowledge. But this approach today can make your seniority a liability. You are anchored to a traditional ways of doing things, while the genius flies flying past you. When that senior manager froze, it was because he thought his value was his knowledge. But in the age of AI, your value is your ability to ask questions. We found that AI accelerates junior engineers faster than any technology we have ever seen. There is a panic about job losses, yes, but I see something else. I see ambitious engineers breaking in and moving up only if their leaders know how to guide them. Embrace being a student. Let your team teach you about this technology over and over again as they continue to learn. Model how to learn. Don't be one who knows all the answers. Give the microphone to the power users. Let the junior engineers who adapted faster to lead, to demo their achievements and teach their peers. And make it a team effort. Run AI learning hours, AI hackathon, team demos, and any other team activities. Work as a team. We don't need leaders who can vibe code better than the 20 years old. We need leaders who can create psychological safety for the teams to say, the AI wrote this, but I don't think it's good. Let me try and fix that. So when you will be that senior manager and a kid asks you about something you don't understand, don't freeze. You don't have to know all the answers. You just have to be willing to ask. Show me. How does it work? How can we test if it works properly? The future isn't about knowledge. You are in a senior position not because you know everything. You are in a senior position because you know what to ask. Those who will thrive in the AI era are those who know how to adapt. I have no idea what the future looks like, but from what I've seen, I'm excited for it. Thank you.